Hello everyone and welcome back to SFF180 and Night 6 of Halloweek 2016. Thank you all so much for joining me. On tonight's episode, there's been murder most foul at an H.P. Lovecraft convention in Providence, Rhode Island, and no shortage of suspects among the rogues gallery of ghoulish geeks. In Nick Mamatas' I Am Providence. That's the book I'm reviewing tonight. Hello everybody, Thomas, your illustrious host as always. Okay, so horror isn't just about freaking us all out, right? Sometimes it has been a genre that has served as a brilliantly pointed vehicle for satire. You know, whether it's the social commentary of George Romero's original Dawn of the Dead, or the nudge-wink trope takedowns of The Cabin in the Woods. And while it's not the job of satire to be nice, still, the distinction between punching up at your targets or punching down is an important one. Into the midst of a climate of frothing fan culture controversies, Nick Mamatas has tossed this little hand grenade he calls I Am Providence, which is the story of a ghastly murder that has taken place at a fictitious H.P. Lovecraft fan convention, set naturally in Providence, Rhode Island, called the Summer Tentacular. And the story really is just a vehicle for roasting fan and convention culture, not just with this niche within a niche sort of fandom that you would get with Lovecraftiana, but the whole world of SFF and horror geekdom in miniature. Now, I'll confess that there are scenes in dialogue here where I laughed out loud, where the author's ammo hits its target's dead center. Sexism, tribalism, poserdom, entitlement, self-mythologizing, you know, these kinds of dweebs who consider themselves published authors because, they had a poem appear in somebody's hand-stapled fanzine 15 years ago. Mamatas, speaking through his own murdered character, describes this kind of fan culture as high school all over again, except without any of the kids who had a shred of social grace or emotional intelligence. Now, there are times when that lends itself to some humorous observations, but there are more times when it comes across as just the same old kind of bully stereotyping that nerds have had to deal with from time immemorial. So on the one hand, you'll have like a fiercely funny scene that is set during, the token women in the genre panel, where the one clueless, arrogant dude on the panel just won't shut up and stop filibustering and talking over all the other women on the panel. I've actually seen some panels like that. But then on the other hand, a few too many cheap shots about scraggly-looking neckbeards and Coke bottle glasses and bad haircuts and the dude who has a head shaped like an asparagus. See, again, are we punching up or punching down here? See, satire at its best should find worthy targets and hit them with laser-guided precision. But bad satire takes the spray and pray approach, right? Just doing whatever collateral damage it does and then justifying it later. Or not at all. So I Am Providence just bounces back and forth way too much between the two effects. And frankly, its characters just feel too much like caricatures. For one thing, it's highly possible to be an avid reader of SFF or horror, or even a specific writer like H.P. Lovecraft, and never in your entire life attend conventions or a fan club or a fan group or be part of fan culture at all. And so the target audience for a story like this, who would get the jokes, is fairly limited to begin with. And second, while those of us who do have a history of going to conventions can very easily scroll through our memory banks and think about, oh yeah, that guy, or oh, that crazy lady, or that one idiot in programming, still, Mamatas features nobody in his story who isn't just wildly exaggerated for humorous effect. Just their oddball quirkiness is off the scale. Yeah, it can be pretty funny, but mostly it's just far too broad a caricature of fandom to meaningfully lampoon fandom. So the story is a whodunit that, yes, takes a very clever approach. The narrative is split between the first-person account of the murder victim, the pompous fan writer Panos Panosian, and the third-person account of his hotel roommate, Colleen Danzig, who decides to play sleuth and ferret out the killer. No one at the convention seems especially upset about Panosian's killing, or even mildly nervous that there happens to be an uncaught killer wandering around the premises who may strike again. Even Colleen isn't really upset. She views solving the crime as this necessary challenge, and it is her bumbling, amateur gumshoe, I suspect everybody approach that is meant to provide much of the narrative comedy. Panosian was not only murdered, his face was very carefully sliced off. How nice and Lovecraftian is that? And he seems more bemused than anything else to discover that his consciousness is still, his mind is still aware and active post-mortem. I mean, it's not exactly the kind of afterlife anybody would have wanted, but here he is. Even he doesn't know who his killer is, as the final few minutes of his life are a complete blank. But his death may have had something to do with a very rare book he was trying to sell, a tome titled simply Arkham, whose creator is said to have bound bits of it in slices of his own skin, supposedly. Or the book could just be a complete red herring. Yeah, now that is a pretty good premise, combining mystery and satire into a kind of meta-adventure for the Cthulhu camp, and Mamatas' breezy writing style does fit the material, and as I've said, presents us with some scenes that are pretty funny at times. But mostly there's way too much of a mean streak at play here for the whole enterprise to be as fun and as knowing as its author intends. And for all of its focus on picking apart the foibles of fandom, the book does not in the end do the other thing that great satire should do, which is provide insight and understanding into the target of its comedy. Terry Pratchett would have pulled this off on a slow day, but Nick Mamatas just can't bring the right amount of Providence to I Am Providence. And that is all I have time for on this episode of SFF180. Everybody, remember to tune in tomorrow night, one more time at midnight Central, for the next installment of Halloweek 2016. Remember the most important thing, these are reviews. You are not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, hit the like button, share the video far and wide with your SFF reading friends, and above all, please sub if you have not done so. That is how SFF180 grows as a channel. And until I see all of you awesome people next time, spooky reading.